really need to be on what's in the best interest of the students. How can we engage in a collaborative dialogue? So we will be maintaining those ethics as well, that dialogue, and making sure that we're mindful of our time. I want to make sure that we get through all the questions, but we also have that time at the end. So if it seems like we're spending a little bit too much time on one question, we will give you that opportunity to submit your additional feedback or questions, but we may have to move on at some time to make sure that we can get to everyone's questions. All right, some of the things that we heard from you, the general themes right now that we really saw was a lot about student safety and discipline, and that's been a big theme since the start of the school year that we've seen on the rise and a lot of concerns there. Mental health and behavior supports, budget and staffing concerns, advanced coursework and magnet funding, attendance and chronic absenteeism. You can share these on there as well, and equity and school climate. So those are some of the themes that we really want to capture. I'll read you the questions that we had, and then we'll kind of move from there. So student supports. Let me go to our first. There were questions revolving around this, and some specifically were, what specific steps is CCSD taking to support classroom teachers with behavior challenges and mental health needs, especially as class sizes grow and support staff positions are reduced? And that is a big concern. I was having a lot of conversations today as well about the concerns that, as we're having struggles with our budget, as it's getting tighter. And I was just having a staff member tell me, we really need another social worker. We're just really strapped. We have a lot more students that need services we're not able to provide. And of course, that's a difficulty with the budget where it is currently. But we are trying to make sure that district-wide, we have enough supports in place that all of our campuses can utilize and reach out to. We do have a layer of supports out there for our schools. We currently have over 700 licensed school counselors, which is great that they are on campus. They're really available for our students to utilize. And as I was discussing with those social workers, 220 social workers and mental health professionals servicing our school. The one concern is, what about, if our school does not have a dedicated social worker, what kind of supports can we receive? There is a referral system that our schools utilize. So if they do not have a social worker, they can reach out for those services. And I know when I've been on campuses where there was some significant situations that took place, some major incidents. And as soon as those schools reached out, we have a crisis on our hands, that support was there. So it's definitely a team effort, a collective effort, that although, we're working around the clock to meet those needs of students, and we can't always have the number of staff that we would like to have, but I think if we can really work together and utilize, one another. We also have Care Solace and Hazel Health. Yeah. Trustee, as far as the staff room, you may have a little more background on that to kind of share that resources available to our families and schools.
Thank you, Trustee Satori. So we are really being very cognizant and trying to really increase our messaging with all platforms to show the families what's available and what's really free for them. So one of the free offerings that we have for free mental health care is Care Solace. And that is no cost to families. And any of our students can utilize that. It is very much, something that can give a different level and layer beyond a counselor or a social worker at the school. The other free offering that we do have is Hazel Health. It's a telehealth support, and I'm kind of looking at my notes because I want to be accurate in our offering and sharing this information. They can get up to 8 telehealth sessions with a qualified mental health professional, and that's a virtual option online, and it's done, with the supervision of professionals that are in that area. Then the other thing that people may not be aware of, and we don't advertise it a lot to our families, but it's at school level service, is there's a system called Panorama, and it's been in existence since 2020. And it really is kind of a diagnosis of surveying kids, like, how are you feeling today?
That's kind of that morning check-in and then they can react to, yes.
And it's helpful, right?
Yes.
Because we really need to know, okay, maybe something happened at home last night.
And it's very quick.
And it's very quick. And
it was a bell ringer.
And it tells, kind of like, hey, I need to talk to an adult or need to talk to someone. I'm struggling, today. And so those are 3 things that are free and available on-site and on campus. And I do want to go back to your mention, Trustee Satori, about let's say schools that don't have the social worker, or they are limited because of some of the budget shortfalls. we will say that we have also a crisis response
Yes.
team centrally, that if schools notify and say, hey, we are in need of having some additional supports and services, how can you help, bring that to us? That is always going to be something that would be available for our schools. So, we're very much listening, and I think other schools that are feeder schools as well, like elementary to middle to high school, they're always interacting and communicating. I know
Sharing needs
and resources as well. So I think just sharing that is very much top of mind for us.
But that collaboration, that dialogue has to be happening. That's really the key, to know what the needs are and to be open, seeking help and reaching out.
Should we pause, Trustee Satori?
Yeah, I do want to share one other,
Okay.
before I did two, because there was one other question. Are there assistance programs for families during hardship? And particularly when you're looking for some specific services, there are definitely counselors and social workers you can reach out to. But if you're having trouble accessing someone or finding how to get in touch with that person, if you go on our website, parents, and the parents tab, support section on ccsd.net. And there's a lot of specific wraparound services, so you might be able to locate those there and reach out to them firsthand if you're having trouble finding someone to get that information from. But yes, I would love to pause right now, particularly on this topic of student supports, as well as supporting teachers and students. Are there some additional questions, concerns, feedback that you're seeing on this topic?
Or you could raise your hand.
Yes, raise your virtual hand or type in the chat. And again, like I said, you can always, things come up later, type it, put it in. But seeing that, we're gonna move on. Oh, there was one other question here.
Oh, we have a hand.
Okay,
we have a hand.
Excellent.
Okay. I think, I don't want to mispronounce anyone's name, but I think our wonderful team here is going to help us. Okay. Are we going to have them say it? Okay. You're going to be unmuted in just a moment. You have to unmute yourself, and you can share your question, please, at this time.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
There we go. Can you say your first name, please? I don't want to miss it.
Of course. Hi, my name's Isis, and I know you're talking about resources for students. Do you have resources similar for this for teachers too?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same thing too. Our social workers and our counselors do assist our teachers as well. Through Teachers Health, there's also a lot through our insurance. There are some of the same online options for mental health. I don't know if you know some of the names and verbiage, but there are a lot of the same supports as well for our staff.
And I'm glad for that question, because it matters, right? Mm-hmm. Our teachers are, there every day and dealing with a lot of different trauma that they're receiving secondhand with the challenges that our students are facing and our families in the community right now. So to really answer your question, yes, there is that available. There's two ways I would say for them to try to seek some of that information. They can go to, I believe it's the Teachers Health Trust. That is the organization that does give them the resources and other information of getting access to that. They can also, even if they aren't a member of the Teachers Union, I'm going to use the one here in Southern Nevada, CCEA, they can still call and ask. There are representatives that will help them to get that information and what's available to them. They don't have to be a member of the Teachers Union in order to get those questions answered. So thank you for that question.
Of course, thank you for answering.
Thank you. All right. Next section that we had some questions around was safety and discipline. The questions we saw in regards, so there was some questions about how we're ensuring our students feel safe and secure. Go ahead, Trustee, as far as the stuff, if you want to take that one.
So, I'm going to say this, and I like to use, our schools are the communities that they serve. And so I think it's an ownership of all that we know the importance of safety being first. And we have empowered our leaders with training consistently, and it's ongoing and it's always pivoting to really understand how do we do that. So, it's not past us that we are seeing, some after effects of some of our kids with COVID. And I know we keep saying COVID, but we are seeing those kids growing up now, and now they're in higher grades and levels. And I will tell you that, a lot of supports have been put into a multi-tiered systems of support, training district-wide for our administrators, for executive cabinet, for our teachers, and really helping them to know how to use restorative practices, how to make sure that we're trying to keep our kids in school. That's really important for us. And there's a lot of different programs, and we can go into those pieces. But number one, there are things that we will not tolerate on our campus, and we follow the law with the Nevada revised statutes. There are certain things that we have to have mandatory, expulsions where students will not be allowed to be on this campus anymore. And so, we feel that's paramount to kids learning, for them to feel safe in a safe and civil school environment. But I don't know the specifics of the question other than, we are providing professional training. There are resources and supports for multi-tiered systems of support. And I'm gonna say that maybe you have a little bit more of what you were asking.
Yeah, it was a little vague in there. What are you doing to ensure students feel safe and secure? But it was also, regarding some other statements. But one thing I do want to talk about is we've been really trying to get a gauge too from our students of how they're feeling at school. Our monthly town halls have been a great way for our leaders to get more information from students, and I really liked how they structured them as well to make sure, because I've seen a lot of town halls, but the people that were involved were also not the students that were we needed to hear the voice from. So I really loved how they've structured this now with trying to get some students involved and getting those recommendations from the principals, to hear some other things. Because I've been very impressed in listening to those student halls of the things I did not know were occurring on our schools, and ways that students were able to reach out for help, through those. So
can I add, Trustee Satori? We just last board meeting had a presentation about student discipline, and that conversation and that presentation was really important, because it was helpful for us to understand that we really want to develop those relationships for kids to feel like they belong. We want to make sure that they feel safe. We want to make sure that our understanding is to correct behaviors and not to be punitive. And so that's why I want to balance with what I said earlier. There are certain things that, you have to really balance safety as a whole, but we also want to make sure that, when students are acting in a certain way, that's a level of communication for us as educators. And I think what I appreciate is we're really helping our kids to make better choices and really self-regulate some of that behavior, and really work with our adults to help de-escalate things that are happening in the schools, so that we can try to keep them in school. And that's our
key.
focus.
And many years ago, it was really about, suspensions and.
And I see this is a very popular topic. We have a lot of hands. We have a lot of hands raised. So how many hands do we have? And maybe, we have one. Okay, it keeps beeping. So Grace, please, people, this is new for us. Okay, so we have a hand. I think it says, Yvette Williams. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Williams. Will you help to unmute her so that we can have her ask the question? She has to undo. Can you unmute?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Yvette, for joining us. What's your
Yes,
question?
ma'am. Thank you. No, I just raised my hand because you guys were muted for a bit. And so somebody had alerted you to it in the Q&A, but I had raised my hand to get y'all's attention.
Oh, we love that. Oh my goodness, Ms. Williams, we were just talking heads.
I know we wanted to hear it, but we missed probably about like 30 seconds to a minute of what you guys had just said.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, let's rewind.
Yeah, I know we were talking about just the measures in place to help students, so that we can help with the discipline, and so we can keep students in the classroom, keep them learning from their behaviors, and provide that support.
I think I mentioned, and I apologize if you're getting this again, that we saw a presentation last week and it was very helpful because really the focus is on that multi-tiered systems of support. Developing relationships with students is really creating that sense of belonging and trust. And if kids are making choices that are not, let's say, appropriate, we want to help them to make better choices. And so you mentioned community circles, restorative practice.
Yes.
That is really the goal, is to keep kids in school. And so, but there are instances, we're not naive, that we have to sometimes have, that we do always have accountability for actions. And there are situations that where students maybe lose that privilege, and rightfully so, bringing a weapon to school, perhaps maybe battery to.
We consider the safety of all students.
Safety of all students, and the entire campus. That's just what it is. We have to be realistic about that.
Yes.
So I hope that kind of addresses some of those questions that were brought up a little bit earlier about that. Because you can't have learning and any kind of, student achievement or outcomes if we don't have safe environments. So, yeah. Any questions? We'll pause here. Any feedback?
And one question also that's come up quite a bit is the behaviors at early ages. That's come up quite a bit in some other meetings, but same
More
type of
extreme.
thing. Yes, and
Yeah.
we're seeing more extreme behaviors, in those early ages. And that is where we really have to rely on those systems of support at the early ages. But it is so much of a different message then, because yes, you are trying to teach some behaviors that maybe have not been learned, or, it's just some other support that is needed. But, it's a struggle, yeah, so.
You mentioned the town halls with the students. Did you
Yes.
hear that part, do you think?
Okay, yeah, we were talking about student town halls and opportunities such as that for students to have a voice. We also had quite some questions around attendance. And it is definitely a topic that we look at regularly. I mean, it's so directly tied to student success, and so looking at our chronic absenteeism rate, and that's one area that we've seen go down. So as we see those go down, you also see our achievement go up. It definitely is hand in hand. The more time that we have students in school, the more we're able to work with them and see that growth take place. But of course, we do know that there's issues that happen, things that families have. There's a lot of struggles at home, especially when we're dealing with older students, when we're trying to get the older student themselves to campus versus the student. A lot of times, sometimes they're needed for assistance at home. I am seeing more and more students absent due to the mental health reasons and just medical reasons in general. So, we've been doing a lot of wraparound services to try to go out to the home. So we've been doing a lot of these walks to try to go visit families, to try to find out what assistance they need, to try to see how we can help them get to school. What is a transportation issue? Is it, care in the home while parents are away? Those types of things. So 24,000 home visits for this semester alone is incredible. I can't, so that to me is really that personal connection. So I love that we're doing that. I think that's really where we're seeing that swing in getting students to school, because they are feeling the people that they can reach out to.
And I think I'll add, we as trustees are really trying to have a really deeper level of understanding of what our families are experiencing. I know that Trustee Satori and myself have been on the Bright Futures walks ourselves, and it was really eye-opening. And I did purposefully, my first walk was for an elementary school. And I'm going to tell you, it was very interesting to see in one section of our town how tight that community was. And it was interesting because we ran into other students from the school that we weren't looking for because they're going to school. And it was a beautiful experience because that student was able to connect us and knew the stories of some of the students that were not coming to school. And I think that's the piece of building a sense of community to really let's all own this and let's figure this out. And I experienced just a week or two ago doing a walk for a high school. And I would say a majority of those visits that we did, we actually made contact. And the reasons that some of the kids expressed not coming to school, it is all about the starts.
Yes, and the start time, I
It
think
was
a lot of
the
struggles
start,
too,
it was wanting a later start time, difficulty getting to school
Yes.
themselves. There's a lot of things that are happening in our families, in our homes, that I think that wraparound piece has really been essential in getting those barriers removed. But even the fact that we're starting to have communication, and I think it's that follow-up. So that was the other piece, is making sure that the school community, does that follow-up piece as well. So again, we're just really trying to do our best, and I would say families are just trying to do their best as well. And we're trying to meet them where they are and have our kids continually show up, because it matters.
And one question, a little more school specific, why are students penalized when sick, and why are only 2 absences allowed?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we don't want students to feel like they're penalized when they're sick and know that they should go to school. I mean, so that is not the case. It's really more that chronic absenteeism where there are students that are, absent for a significant amount of time, more than 10% of the school year. And that's what really starts to impact their academics, because they're missing, and then when they return, they're far behind, and it takes sometimes 2 years to make up, 2 to 3 years to make up 1 year where they were chronically absent, because as they return, they're playing catch up the whole time. So again, it's not the 1 or 2 absences. It's not the here and there when you were sick and have that doctor's note. And that's why we reinforce the doctor's notes, because we want to know what's going on. We want to know if students are sick, and like I said, some of them are getting more and more of the sicknesses that are lasting for a prolonged period of time. So that's where we need to put some supports in place if that's what's taking place.
And I would say, let's use this time as a way to communicate with the community on that. Like, so if you are having a situation where you might need to have a homebound service.
Yes, I've had several of those recently, and that same thing, they're missing a lot, and I'm like, they need to be receiving homebound
They
support.
need to, so families may not have awareness, and maybe for whatever reason, they don't know that they can have homebound services. So maybe it's due to an illness that they cannot physically go to school. There are ways that we can set up a plan for families and for that student to receive instruction in a certain way with homebound services, is what we want to make sure that that's clear, so that we don't lose that child missing that instruction and us losing that connection with that family. Okay. Do we have any questions at this time about that topic? I don't see any hands raised. No? Okay, Trustee Satori, moving on. Let's see. Oh, we do have one. Okay, as we said that. It looks like Patricia Ojeda. So Patricia, we're gonna unmute you. If you just unmute yourself, then you can ask your question or make a comment or have a solution. We're open here. We want to hear that as well.
Okay, you mentioned about homebound services, but I remember like last school year, there were parents who try to do the homebound services, but it's a long process and they have to go through doctors. So it's really a tedious process. It's not simple. It's sort of hard.
So Patricia, do you, I'm always like we're trying to like think about a solution. So I'm hearing that maybe the process itself is kind of a challenge for families. Is there a point of contact, or what do you think would help with making that not be such a difficult process?
Because I remember last year there were some parents, and we no longer do like distance learning. Like we can't code it as that. It has to be a temporary distance learning. But I remember there were some parents last school year that tried to get the homebound services, but they had to go through their doctors. They had to get like letters, and it's not.
And that is correct. But hopefully it should, once you, through your school nurse, I know for mine, that is who's providing that paperwork. Sometimes the barrier is getting the appointments in time. So that's kind of what I was wondering where the barrier was, because getting the paperwork, your school should be able to provide you with that. Then of course you need to get the appointment, and I know that can be the struggle of getting there. And that's where I don't know if some of our, if there's some support there to be able to get in to see a doctor to get that paperwork signed in a more reasonable time. Then of course, but then at that point, once we have that in place, we can begin to do the homebound services. We do have to find the instructor for those.
Right.
And I don't know if there's some utilization of sharing of instructors, I don't know as well of that, but sometimes that's the case. particularly at higher times, that might have been the issue. So if you're saying maybe when it was, more pre-COVID and closer to that, there might have been a lot more need for, but I know recently some families that I've referred, we've been able to get the process rolling pretty quickly and get them those services. So definitely reach out, follow up with us if you're still needing more help or more assistance. We can probably put you in contact with who can better point you in the right direction a little bit better.
And I would say, Patricia, go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, I said, thank you. Because I do remember there was a family who struggled with that, and it was hard. They couldn't get it. So their student did miss some school and then eventually ended up going back to school.
But I think too, a lot of families don't know that they have that option. So they're just missing, time. So, thank you for letting us know. But I do want families to know, please reach out, even though it sometimes seems like a lot of steps, we will help, walk you through. I've had some that have kind of stopped because it seemed tedious and time consuming, but once I was able to kind of, let's walk you through it and do it together, then, it wasn't quite as bad. So try to get that over that first hurdle of, getting it started, getting those appointments, getting the paperwork, because we definitely can set some things in place that will keep your child on track when they're able to return.
And so I love that we're such a great community. We have someone sharing with us some information. Homebound services can be obtained at Siegel Diagnostic Center, and that's located at 2625 East St. Louis Avenue. We can also have you reach out. We have a director that is very powerful and helpful if there are some barriers to getting homebound and having maybe those challenges removed. That director is Monica Talbot. So if you needed to talk to Monica Talbot, I'm going to give you the office work number. It's 702-799-8616. Again, that is 702-799-8616, and ask for Monica Talbot. And we want to make sure that that is not going to be, a hindrance for the child to get homebound services. Thank you, Patricia, for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next section of questions we received regarded advanced coursework and opportunities for advanced coursework for our students, career readiness. One question was, what specific steps will the board take to prioritize funding for magnet schools like LBA? That has been a big question. Also for the arts, that's been a question too with cuts. I do want to share a little bit just about our advanced coursework and career readiness in general. We do have CTE programs available at every high school. Making sure that families know that the school closest to you does have CTE programs. There are lots of opportunities beyond those. If your school does not offer what you're interested in, we do have open enrollment and coast opportunities to look for the programs you're interested in. But the first step is being familiar with what is offered on your campus through your counselor. We do offer a lot of AP classes. Really pleased seeing that rise and the number of AP courses that we're offering. It used to be just at select schools, and we had a lot of schools throughout the valley that didn't feel like they were able to provide that to their students, and we've seen those numbers go up. In addition, what's really gone up is dual enrollment, and so that is probably the biggest barrier I see sometimes there is when it's the transportation part, but so many of our schools are now doing the Jumpstart program in class and being able to get that concurrent enrollment. Those classes are free, those are paid for, so that's free college credit that your student can get while they're dually enrolled and getting that high school credit in addition to the college credit, so it's a great program. And IB is one of our most rigorous programs. It is offered at two programs, and we were both at IB schools as well. I was there at the beginning when it was becoming an IB program. So the question is, and so those specific programs, often do require more funding for the programs that they're able to offer, particularly some of the CTE programs. When you're looking at things like culinary and some of those programs that are quite expensive, so there is some additional funding that is allocated towards those programs. But we have to make sure we're prioritizing the needs, throughout our district. But that is, and I know a lot of those decisions are site-based, so the schools get their budgets. Where they are making those cuts is often site-based, but I was pleased to hear Superintendent Ebert talking about a lot of the guidance that was being provided to make sure that schools are still providing those opportunities, and where those cuts are being made aren't particularly in certain areas where now, schools aren't able to offer the arts. So there is some oversight in what positions are being cut, is my understanding, and you might be able to speak to that a little bit more. But the actual positions, and then in addition, and we're going to talk a little bit more when we talk about cuts, so kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit in the budget. But making sure that we keep that focus on our advanced coursework and those opportunities. Sometimes as we now are kind of reimagining and restructuring as our valley is changing and moving, having to be creative as we're looking through canon design of how do we need to restructure some of our schools, because things change and it's, movement happens, population moves, and so now we're seeing overcrowding in some schools and less in some. But we need to make sure that we're still, adequately providing this advanced coursework for.
And I kind of want to add, because we have the opportunity to have some time with some of the executive cabinet members, and one of them is Justin Dayoff, our CFO, or Chief Financial Officer. And so what has been different, I will tell you, is that the level of engagement with our site-based leaders. He formed a committee of principals that volunteered from all levels. I think he had almost up to 70 of our principals really weighing in on the impacts of the budget, kind of their challenges with the budget, and really helping him understand the landscape of even having how to fund a magnet program, how to, look at the different structures that are required, as you just mentioned, Trustee Satori. So I will say to you, it's ongoing, because there was intentional, listening and input from our site-based leaders to shape some of how those weights would go for the budget, to try to preserve our shining stars, our magnet programming, and to provide some of the offerings for kids. And it is about equity to access, that our kids can have advanced coursework or can earn their high school credit and a college credit, which is that dual enrollment at the same time. So, we will say to you that I think that's the piece where we have to work on that together and solve that problem. And we're going to go into this hard conversation next about the budget cuts and what's happening and what that's looking like. So to really respond to that is that we're still listening. We're still trying to solve some of those issues, and at the same time preserving and maintaining, that type of offering.
And making sure what courses are offered is a reflection of what the students want, what can get them jobs in our area, so we definitely look at that. I know most schools do look at that of what offerings are. So that does drive a lot of the programs that we're able to offer as well. So I know sometimes when people are upset by cuts, but we really have to be, not every school can offer every program. And that's where sometimes, as we are working collaboratively, we're not able to offer this program, but let me help you find it, that is what your passion is, because we do have to be strategic in what we can offer, what we can fund appropriately, and really make it a high quality program. So.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have any questions on that specifically? We'll kind of pause there. You raise your hand. You want to go down to the waffle, put it in the Q&A. This is new for us, so I don't see anything. Okay, moving
Well,
on.
and that really does lead right into budget staffing, because it really is tied in together quite a bit. So there's questions about why eliminating positions instead of reallocating to reduce large class sizes. Before extending school hours, and we kind of did just discuss that a little bit over, I was kind of alluding to that. And there definitely is a lot of reallocating, and what I've been told as well is that we will not be losing positions. Those people will not, we do have positions for them. It's always we hate to have to move people. And also in the position that some of these people are so well loved in their schools and positions, so those are hard decisions to make. Like you had mentioned too, there was a lot of work done with the principals by the district. So this was something that conversations were had leading up to this. But there was a question about before extending school hours, what evidence shows instructional time is the primary driver. And then how will budget cuts affect different districts? Okay, so Yes, so, we don't know, there is a lot of data that was looked at for that. And then also the question was, we're spending some money towards additional buses. There is cost towards that. Those funds, though, we're not able to allocate towards salaries as well. So those are different. Those are through the bond. Yes, so it does make sense to me. And that is definitely a question you'd ask. We're spending money on this, but we're losing teachers. Why can't we put it towards there? And it definitely seems like, but we do have restrictions of where these monies can be spent and how they can be spent. But there was a lot of research done on particular high school students and the struggles we're seeing there and getting them to school and making sure that they're receiving those instruction when they're awake. And we see those problems more at the high school level. So that there definitely was a lot of evidence, you said what evidence was shown. There was a lot of work that went into that to ensure that if we were making this investment that we feel like it will help move the needle.
And know as your trustees, this is not a one-time conversation because just as much as, decisions were made to pivot to, making those adjustments, we have, and it's part of our responsibility to monitor how is that going and what are we seeing and, do we need to make additional pivots and is it really a return on our investment? Because that's taxpayer dollars. So we will continue to do that. And I think, we didn't mention this in the beginning, but people think like we can make the decisions on how the money is spent. What we can do is provide really oversight over our one employee, which is the superintendent, on really how is it being spent and asking those questions and really evaluating, is it efficient? Is it producing results? Are we getting better outcomes? And meeting the needs of our communities and our schools. And then the other thing that we all often have to review is the policy. The different policies that are state law become oftentimes policy within the district. And so that is the other piece that we are often doing and looking at and reviewing. So, but we're back to the budget. And you are correct, Trustee Satori. It has been expressed to all of us that people will be reassigned and they will, hopefully we will be able to accommodate and not lose any of our staffing. There's another measure that's happened is there's no longer any external hiring that's happening at this time. So that's another piece, a layer that is not going to be happening so that we can allow the surplus process to go through the spring, and hopefully people will be able to have some choice in their placement. It's not always that case. It doesn't always happen that way, but we give them that and afford that opportunity to hopefully get them so that they can stay with us and stay with the district.
Yeah, and what we're also in such a better place this year is with we have, do not have a lot of open positions. We're so very well filled. Our retention, our returning staff, we had a 94% retention rate. So those things that, that also are such a stressor, at the beginning of the year, making sure we have a qualified teacher in every classroom. But now I think we're having to be a little more strategic too. And we're, making sure that we're being fiscally responsible in how we're spending our money, putting those teachers where they're needed. Making sure that we're not over hiring in those positions, but sometimes you do have to do some movement to make sure that we have our allocated. Do we want to take a moment to ask you some questions from the chat?
Is there anything in the Q&A box?
Okay.
Any questions, raise your hand. We'll be happy to unmute you and have you ask at this time.
Let's see. Student engagement, let's see, so we had some, okay, there was a question on student, and then this equity and school-specific concerns. Why is Black History Month not being celebrated? There's a few questions here, so I guess we'll take them one at a time a little bit. Why is Black History Month not being celebrated? And that would really be, I would encourage you to bring that to your school leader and your, as well, because that would be a school-based decision, but across our schools, it is being celebrated. But if it's not something you're seeing, then I definitely would express that to your school leaders.
Well, and I would say a few things, like, yes, schools are, a lot of our schools are celebrating and acknowledging and recognition of Black History Month. And I would say if you're not seeing that happening, it's a part of being a part of, just going to the administration and saying, hey, maybe I'm just not aware.
Yes.
You're not publicizing, like, is it on the website? Is it in your school newsletter? Some schools do that. I know in our social media on the district, they have been acknowledging namesakes of schools. And there have been some celebrations throughout the district. And a lot of our high schools have Black Student Union organizations.
And a lot of times, yes, and they'll help lead the charge there.
Yeah.
But yes.
If they specifically, like that was a specific question, we really encourage you to go to school, have a conversation, or put in like an inquiry, and we're happy to, like, we can ask that question.
I know, say yes. A lot of times it isn't publicly
Yeah.
because I had a parent, express as well, and I was able to share some of the things we were doing that a lot of times were happening more in the classroom.
Right.
And I realized that we were not sharing that with families. We weren't getting those pictures out. But also I took it as an opportunity to get feedback from that parent of what, and some of the things that we were doing, they didn't think were, and it had been organized by the Black Student Union. They wanted to give some feedback of maybe some more quality experiences that can be done to really celebrate. And so we were able to welcome that feedback and say, like, okay, what are some suggestions we can make to them for upcoming that we might be able to better. So definitely, reach out and engage in that conversation that you're not seeing it and how you can help maybe make it more visible.
And I think another avenue, just not that you have to wait for this, but every school is expected to have a school organizational team meeting on a monthly. And those are posted, they're required by law. And I'm sure that, they, whether they're in person or they might be like in a hybrid virtual space, that you'd have an opportunity to go, and there is public time to even provide commentary, to be able to kind of question and ask, or even, bring solutions or suggestions to the school. I know a lot of our leaders are really open to that. They want parents to be, there and really saying what kind of experiences do you want us to provide and do and be partners with the schools. So that's just another avenue for you to kind of engage as well.
There was additional questions there. Why so few field trips? And field trips have started coming back more and more. As far I do believe. I know for a while they had, during COVID, had really stopped, and then over time we're starting to see more of them. They are a lot for the teachers to plan, and a lot, but we do try to incorporate as many as possible. By so many fees are definitely required to help bring those costs down for schools, and we try to keep them specific to those organizations and those things that the students are utilizing, but that does help us keep those quality programs and keep those costs down as much as possible. That was the submitted questions. We can just open it up now for any questions in the.
There was a question. I want to bring it up because it's a question that is coming to our I'm just going to say communicated. There were some concerns, and they wanted to know, like, how, let's say there may be a colleague of ours, a trustee, that they don't necessarily agree with certain behaviors. What I will tell you with that question is that we're a board of 11, elected and appointed, and we've all adopted a board governance as our way to govern ourselves. And so what I will tell you is within that governance structure that really we can only hold ourselves accountable by following those policies. And actually we are in the process right now. We just reviewed our very last set of policies, that we were looking at, which are various things like relationship with the superintendent, how we are to communicate with the media. And there is portions in our policies that specifically outline really what's expected in our behaviors within the community and how we expect of each other to operate. And if there are concerns with any of us, the avenues is to communicate with our board president and to have a conversation. If there is a concern, you can do that in any form. Typically it could be in writing or making a phone call to our board office. That is a way to try to remedy or resolve with whatever your concern might be. I will bring this up because it's been a past practice when I previously newly entered on the board. we have been held to an ethics standard. And so we have to go through and sign a pledge of ethics. And so that is also an avenue, if that's so be the choice, to file a complaint via ethics. And I have to just be very factual that is those are the options. And that is a question that was raised within some of our questions, and it's also been brought to our attention as well. So I hope that answered that question.
Thank you, Trustee Esparza.
Yeah, sure.
So we do have some time
to
left, and we
open
will
it
just
up.
open the floor for other things that were not submitted ahead of time or we have not addressed.
If you want to, oh great, we have some raised hands. We also want to remind you in the waffle at the bottom, if you want to put anything in the meeting tools and go to Q&A, you can just type it in and our moderators will help us. Okay, I think ISIS.
Yes, hi there.
ISIS,
So we're talking about the teachers being reassigned. Recently at my daughter's school, that happened with the principal. She got reassigned and they still don't have a new principal. And this happened at like the beginning of the year. And we don't, a lot of us parents have talked and we still don't know where she's at. Like, and there still hasn't been a new principal that's came in. And so I'm just wondering what is happening to the people that are being reassigned.
So I will try to do my best to answer that question, and I appreciate you asking it, because we need to make sure that that's being communicated as far as like who is there to address questions or to provide that kind of guidance for the community. So every school leader has a boss, and that boss would be a school associate superintendent. And so we have different regions that you can try to definitely get in communication with to find out that answer, because they would be the ones to kind of say, hey, you know, this is what the process is and this is what's happening right now. They may not be able to address and talk specifically about said principal because it might be a personnel matter.
Right, they wouldn't be able to, but. Yeah.
But they can at least tell you like where are they
in the process, or
where are
what
they
is
in the
timeline?
process and the timeline for making sure that, you know, potentially when and if that were the case, to have a replacement. So I don't know specifically where you are, but I will tell you that if you go to ccsd.net and you look up, look up your daughter or son's, your child's school, that it would show you, it should show you like who the school associate superintendent is, and that would be the contact to ask. And it's very much a valid question, Isis. I thank you for that. And if you don't get that information, reach out to our board liaison. Can I get that number so that we give that accurately to them?
Sure. And I think I've seen her picture like in the office and the name and everything.
Okay.
And we did receive an email saying, you know, she was reassigned and there's an assistant principal right now, you know, acting. Okay. But a lot of the parents that I've talked to, because my daughter's in different clubs, you know, we love the principal that was there. So we're just like, we don't know what happened.
Well, you want communication, and even if it's like, what has there been follow-up?
Because that is a while, you said since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
surprising that it's been that long.
So Caitlin, can you give us that number? That way, is it going in the chat? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No worries, Isis. Let me give you that number. Can we see it? I don't see the chat.
I see it.
Oh, you see it?
Yep, I get it. Right. I'm writing it down right now.
Okay. And for anyone else, I mean, here it is, 702-799-1072. And that's actually our board trustee phone number, and our amazing staff, which is just incredibly hardworking. Kudos, props to them. They are going to say, okay, Trustee Esparza, again, Satori, you gave them our number. But the good thing is it helps with communication, right? You'll get your answers. They'll point you to the right people. They may not have the answer, but they're going to get the answer and send you in the right direction. So thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yvette Williams.
Yes, I have a quick question. In terms of the surplus, were principals given like direction on how to come to, the conclusion of what would be in the best interest for the school, or were they just supposed to, I don't know, like figure it out themselves?
There was a lot of work prior. I know leading up to it, there was a lot of discussions, a lot of meetings with principals trying to help them figure out where they should make those cuts and how they can balance it, yes.
So, and Yvette, to just kind of piggyback and follow up with Trustee Satori, it is a site-based decision. So principals were given, basically a guidance document to help them really look at, all the variables that are necessary. A lot of our leaders, and I wouldn't say, and I can't speak specifically for all, would have conversations with not only their staff, but also with their school organizational team. And that organizational team is supposed to have a representative like from the teaching staff. They need to have support staff. They need to have a student representative. They also need to have parents on there as well. And sometimes some school organizational teams will have community members, and they're required to go have conversations with those representatives as well in this decision making, because they are the ones that see the budget as a whole and they really have to approve it. So that's part of the SOT process. So that's our understanding, is that principals were given guidance from the central district office, and also having communication with the staff and the community as a whole. It's very challenging when you're looking, millions of dollars deficit in a budget, having to make those really hard decisions of trying not to impact classrooms as much as possible. But, again, they made those hard decisions. And if there are things specifically like you're wondering why a decision was made, really reach out to that leader in that building, in that space, and really ask that question. And it's in your purview to do that. I hope that helps a bit.
Yeah, because often when you lose a teacher, in some cases you lose a program as well, and that's what it's hard to do. Now this is not offered for students, and
Right.
so but a lot of times that's where they do have to gauge
Right.
the needs of their campus, and we don't know what those are, what the
Right.
interests are, where they're.
And I will
Yeah.
follow up, Yvette, to say to you that when I received some emails specifically about schools, I loved it because, we don't understand what the impact is. And so I did my best to kind of say, like, what was the shortfall? But also I really redirected them back to the school and really say, have that conversation. And one of the things too is I also attached just the facts, and it's also posted on our website on ccsd.net. It kind of talks about some frequently asked questions of why things were cut, certain budget shortfalls, and that is still posted on our website. So that might help to have that as well. It's called Just the Facts, Just the Budget Facts, and it's an FAQ, and it's almost like 6 pages. So that might help to answer a little bit of that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have other questions in the box. So we have a question. Thank you, Jessica. She's saying, I'm wearing my parent hat, not my teacher hat. My child's attending a preschool, yay, through CCSD, but they require monthly meetings that happen during the week at 10 a.m. when parents do not come. We get a reminder that these are mandatory and that if we cannot make it, preschool is optional. It is hard for anyone to miss work once a month, but I feel even more so when we are asking our families in Title I communities to do so. Even for myself, this would require I get a sub once a month in my classroom, which causes instability. But for someone who doesn't have sick pay, imagine I just really want this to be taken into consideration for future because I feel it is super inequitable and the preschool truly should not be optional.
Is this an informational meeting monthly? Because I'm wondering, yes, I think this definitely should be brought up because there's other ways that could be done, obviously, than asking someone to miss work because and you're also gonna have days you might miss work for your child being sick and those things can be out of your classroom. So yes, any times where we can prevent that, is there a recorded option for those who can't join, maybe a virtual or something like that? But, if you can't leave your classroom, there definitely needs to be another option as well.
This is why we're doing this. We need to know things that maybe are really, this is something that is new for us. I have not heard of this. Jessica, thank you for sharing. Because that is not a practice that I
know, and again, to say this sounds
mandatory.
like a single, because I'm not familiar with this as well. So I'm wondering if this is a site-based practice as well. Have you reached out to the administration there as well, maybe to get an answer to explain the situation to them and ask how this is being required, because it wouldn't be for other grade levels, so to provide that for pre-K.
Right.
During the school day.
So I love this conversation. Thank you for the question, because now we will take it back and we're gonna find out, maybe what is that specifically and why is it specifically? And especially you're saying it's mandatory and it's at 10 o'clock and you're a teacher, you're teaching.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just, yeah. So thank you for that information. Very helpful. Oh, she's saying that when you asked about it, it's part of the Title I grant and we agreed when we signed up. Yeah, but let's Jessica, I see your information. I think we're gonna follow up with you on this.
Through the grant, I'm sure there's other ways to accomplish that.
We're gonna have to figure that out.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's not just for you, but for any of, like you just said, for any of our families, that might be, very much a challenge. Thank you for that information. Appreciate you.
All right, no further questions? So we have a few minutes left. If there's anything else or just any input or feedback is welcome also. Well, thank you so much for joining us and allowing us to test out this virtual format. Please give us some feedback in the survey if this is something that was helpful, if you'd like to see it continue, if you think that it's a way that we could keep this doing and be able to do it more frequently and engage more community members. We'd love to hear about it. Other ways to stay connected in the meantime, we've shared a lot of on our website, district communications and newsletters. Be sure you're following our social media and visiting our website, our newly redesigned website. So please peruse that because, I want you to be familiar with it because things are in different places now and it looks a little bit different. So I want you to get familiar with that. And this year, please, our surveys. So, it's been called the year of the survey because we want your feedback. So we've been sending out a lot of surveys for this reason in particular. So,
and I will put in some plugs. So we are in the process with our superintendent, Ebert. She's having dream sessions. There are still 2 left. There's one on Saturday on the 21st. I believe it's a virtual option. It's posted on the front page of the website, ccsd.net, that you can engage in that session to really talk about what do you see us needing to do moving forward in developing a new plan and what you want to see in your community school, giving us feedback. And I know that it's very interactive, and I think it's only an hour, and that's happening at what time? We'll get that for you in just a moment. And then the other session that I will be attending in Henderson is happening on the 24th at Foothill High School, and that's an in-person session. And I'm gonna look up that time for you so that we have that as well. That time is starting at 5:30 p.m. to about 7:30 p.m. And know that there is also a meal provided at the dream session, so they work in that dinner time in addition to getting the feedback from you. So we just wanted to share that as well, that we're working on our strategic plan with our superintendent, setting goals, setting metrics and measures, how to, what do we need to focus on. And I think the last thing I just want to leave with you is her 4 core areas. She is really focused on pre-K, expansion of that as an offering and a foundation for our youth and our littles. And
Math, middle school math is a high priority area
middle
as
school
well.
math is
Yes.
another part of our 4 core. Early literacy is another key focus that we're putting a lot of resources. And then the last one would be our career and work readiness is also another area that is been a very much core.
I like a lot of discussions too of really making the learning more creative, meeting the
Yeah.
needs of today's learner. And so we've been having a lot of discussions that way and how AI is affecting it as well and all of those. So yeah, that new career readiness and the skills that our students need for today's workforce.
Caitlin, did we find out what time it is on virtual? You've dropped it. Oh, okay, good news. Thank you, Tech. They dropped the remaining dream sessions in the chat box so that you can see when that is happening.
Those are great collaborations. I highly recommend coming to those.
Well, thank you, Trustee
Yes,
Satori.
thank you so much. Thank you, Trustee Esparza-Stoffer. I appreciate you joining me today, and hopefully we can do this more regularly. So, and like I said, please reach out if there's additional questions that you didn't feel comfortable answering or that you think of it later. So, thank you so much for joining us.